You're listening to Conscious Conversations, a personal and spiritual growth podcast to help you become your fullest expression. Enjoy. Hey everybody, my name is Marco Chak, your host and the founder of DVCADI. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the 16th episode of Conscious Conversation, a podcast for growth-oriented and mission-driven divine beings. This is a space where we host high vibrational conversations with the intent to help you become the fullest expression of yourself. Each episode will dive deep into rabbit holes and always end with at least one big action step that you can apply to help optimize your life, mind, body, or soul, and leave the podcast feeling inspired, awakened, and empowered. Our broader mission at DVCADI is to co-create a 5D world by harnessing the power of collective ascension and collaboration. So I'm super glad that you can join us in this beautiful conversation today, where I have a special guest, Diane Pfister, to dissect and dive deep into consciousness. What does it mean? The different science and different work and behind it, the collective ascension. How can we remove blocks of things that commonly block us from raising our consciousness? And yeah, so super happy, super appreciative to have this opportunity to have a conversation with Diane. Diane and I actually met through a mutual friend of ours, Kylie, and we met on via the website Symbi, where I tried part of her service, which we'll dive deep into a little bit, that she co-founded the GRACED framework. And it was very intriguing, kind of like removing some of my blocks. And I have experienced some benefits afterwards, and thought, it would be a great opportunity to invite someone like her to just understand what does it mean when we say the word consciousness, because we use that very loosely, within the spiritual community sometimes, vibration, consciousness, frequency. But when we understand exactly what that means, I feel like we can use the word with more precision, even myself included. So with that being said, welcome to the show. Just very excited to dive deep into the subject of matter.
Thank you very much, Marco. Just wanted to say, I think you're one of these rising stars that are going to lead this fifth dimension. So I'm very honored to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for seeing that in me. I really appreciate that. When I was like looking at your work, looking at your YouTube channel and your different videos, I think I'm very interested. I'm always very interested in how people start their spiritual journey, because what you do, and when we, talk about energy healing, it's really not something that, the mainstream talks about. But obviously you have stories and you have case studies of it working. I remember you told me, you cleared some energy in the farm, and then the horse that never went there in that space started going there, because there was just some people that died during World War II in that exact same spot, right? So I guess like not a lot of maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but like I guess not a lot of people are born with this type of curiosity in these kind of more alternative subjects. So I'm just curious, maybe for the myself included, and for the audience, like how do you kind of stumble upon these alternative healing methods, modalities, and just consciousness in general?
Well, I think it was the realization that with the terminology alternative medicine, let's just start right with that. Actually, Big Pharma is the alternative, because it's only been around 50 years, whereas all these various forms of what we're now calling alternative medicine go back centuries. I learned from Native American teachings, and then with study found that it very easily aligned with the teachings of Peruvian shamans, Aborigines, Tibetan monks. So it didn't matter where you went into cultures that retained the past, you found Jungian roots, like the same attitudes that had this universal expression of what is consciousness, how consciousness works, and how it's been stifled
Mm.
And something you said that not many people know about this, but it is a knowing that everyone has. It's just been blocked. So
And
that was the
mhm,
premise of my work is to remove those blocks.
right. And so moving forward, if how should I classify instead of saying alternative medicine? What do you think it's the more precise and accurate way of describing it?
Gosh, well, um, there's so many avenues, so many directions. There's energy healing, there's healing modality, there's it's really not about the terms
Right.
because the words are just symbols. And once you get past the symbols, you realize there's just such a level of similarity and simplicity that language just makes it more complicated.
Mm.
But um, but yeah,
Okay.
I mean, just for the ease of how we've been indoctrinated, calling it alternative medicine is probably what you have to start with until people do understand that it really is touching what we are intrinsically and have been before religions took over and politics took over and big
Mm-hmm.
pharma took over.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And before, I mean, developing Grace and doing what you do, what was your prior career? What did you do? What did you do? And how come you switched?
I was a studio painter, and my paintings were in galleries and private collections all over the world. And I was happy doing it because I knew when people bought them, they bought them usually as gifts for their partners or for their office or someplace. And I knew there was pleasure in what I created for people, but I
Mm,
knew it wasn't enough. And so I was searching, and I really didn't know what I was searching for. I'd always been fairly spiritual in terms of my own faith, reading and trying to understand different Jungian roots of different faiths, not really buying into any one particular.
mm-hmm.
But then I had I guess you'd call it a life crisis. My 7-year-old daughter was bitten by a brown recluse spider and was taken to the hospital, put in intensive care, and I was told basically she probably wouldn't make it to the morning.
Mm,
And this spider bite, I don't know if you know about it, but it's pretty vicious. You get a hole actually. You can actually look inside the body and
wow.
see the sinew of muscles and what have you, and it just eats away at the flesh. So I couldn't just sit there and say that's enough, and I also couldn't just sit there and pray because I kept thinking of a bumper sticker I saw many years ago, and it said, "God moves mountains. You just have to bring a shovel." So I
Mm,
thought, okay, I've got to get to do something. So I got on a computer, which this was 20 some years ago, and computers were pretty primitive and slow, but I just found out that this spider originated in Oklahoma. And I
mm-hmm.
thought, well, who would know about indigenous spiders in Oklahoma? And I immediately thought Native Americans. So I just
Mm,
typed Native American remedy for spider bites, and this man's name came up, Peter Bigfoot.
mm-hmm.
And I dialed the number, which I was told later would be the chance of him answering the phone was probably 3 times a year.
Wow.
And he answered it. And I told him the situation in this frantic mother bear
Mm-hmm.
explanation. And he said, sure, come and get it. It works. You just have to put it on in the first 95 hours. And I went, okay, well, where are you? I'm just dialing, this, I have
Mm-hmm.
no idea. And
Mm-hmm.
he said, I'm in the mountains of Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, oh, well, and I said, I'm in England.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, I don't know what to do. And I said, look, I'm going to give you an American Express card number. If you have to book a first class seat, I don't care. I'll spend the rest of my life paying off if I have to. But if you swear it works, and he says, I swear it works. It's a Native American remedy. It's made from the weeds that grow around my house. It's that
Mm-hmm.
simple. And
Mm-hmm.
so he sent it to me. We got it in time, and immediately putting it on,
Mm,
that wound went down by half in,
wow.
in an hour, and it within a few hours totally sealed up.
Wow.
And the invoice with that bill, he charged me $16.
So he
So
shipped it over? He didn't come over, but he shipped it over.
he FedExed it overnight,
Okay.
which had to have cost a few $100s. I
Okay.
mean, that's just, and plus the um, powder that I had to
Mm-hmm.
mix with water and all. But and I swore then and there, I said, look, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I am indebted to this man, and I will someday have to do something to pay him back.
Mm-hmm.
So when my daughter recovered, she had 2 years of amnesia. I had to teach her how to read and write all over again. She forgot math, and she was an excellent, like a superstar student. So it was quite a loss for a while, but she came out of it in 2 years, and now she works at Downing Street in London and has an amazing career and is, fully
Mm.
recovered. So when she was 14, we went to the farm and we researched his methodologies. He's devoted to preserving Native American remedies.
Mm-hmm.
He explained to me about the spiritualness of Native American thinking and teachings, and it changed my life.
Mm.
So I wrote a book about this entire experience called Spiderbite on Amazon, and it forced me into making a decision saying, do I want to just keep doing these paintings,
Mm-hmm.
or do I want to do something in service to people with this newfound knowledge that I have? And I chose the service. So
Wow.
that's how it started.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that story because it makes you wonder why does, the hospital not know about this when it can't cost you $16 and save a life, right? It makes you wonder what else.
Yeah. I found out about it from a doctor who had been stationed in Oklahoma. And he said, yeah, these spiders like dark spaces, that they would climb into the boots of the soldiers there in the night, and then they would put their boots on and go and do 100-mile hikes, just like
Mm-hmm.
camping and coming back, and they never take their shoes off,
Mm-hmm.
but their feet would hurt and they didn't know why. And when they took it off, they had these horrible sores, and he said too often we had to do amputations.
Mm.
So here they are right there, and they don't have the remedy that's just up the mountain
Right.
with the
Yeah,
Native Americans. So
man.
that non-acceptance of the past tense, the history of thousands of years, is dismissed because of they don't wear white coats and speak to you on computers.
Right.
It's natural understanding of human nature.
Wow. Just to hear about us to not like be open-minded to try it and stuff. It actually surprises me how it shouldn't be even more well known, right? Like these kind of things. But
I know,
yeah.
right? Especially when I mean, in the States, even if you want to put it on a monetary level, it costs $30,000 to have your foot amputated. So people go into debt to lose their foot for
Right.
something that costs $6 that could have
Right.
solved the problem.
Mm. Is there any like equivalent of like things that like wowed you or like shocked you that are equivalent to this kind of discovery? Like a yeah.
Yeah, when we went to the farm, I mean, but I should just say his farm is called Reevis Farm, Reevis farm.com, and it's he sells these magical medicines, so plugging him there.
Mm.
But I think finding out that nature provides the remedy for anything that attacks you. For example, if there is poison ivy, within 3 or 4 feet of poison ivy is something called a bach leaf, which is this big, ugly kind of like a cow's tongue. It looks
Mm.
like this big leaf plant.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
it put that on after you've gotten poison ivy and it cures it.
Mm.
So finding out that nature actually has this yin yang, something is really strong and hurts you, right next to it is the remedy.
Mm.
It's just your awareness that keeps us from knowing this. So yeah, I think that was the most shocking thing to learn.
Wow. Yeah, I actually checked out Peter Bigfoot
Okay.
after kind of watching your video, and he has like one interview. I think he has a couple, but one pretty well made one. And it was man, that guy has so much knowledge and
You should
wisdom.
definitely talk to him. Oh my goodness, you
Yeah.
can't get him to stop talking. He's
I'll just
he's
listen. Yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, you two would be a match made in heaven with your wonderful skills.
Yeah. And so you experienced that. I mean, as a mother, I mean, I couldn't imagine that moment. You were so relieved and like thankful, and that in a sense has been a life-changing moment for you, and now you are diving into this beautiful work where it's about something, I guess, that touches all of humanity, and because it's really about something we have in common, right? Our consciousness. This is something that's beautiful, that we are aware. Some animals do not have this, um, as great of ability as like we human has. And so yeah, can you kind of like talk a little bit about like how you stumble upon maybe Dr. David Hawkins' work, and like what made you, I guess, base a lot like your modality, central to this ecosystem or on his work.
Yes, well, I've been working on a book studying various forms of ancient healing and teachings,
Mm-hmm.
and found that first there's the individual consciousness, which I perceive as like an octopus, maybe, where there's this source of energy, this source of higher understanding, and it just decides to have tentacles out and experience different lives. And each of those tentacles might be on a different planet, might be in a different time frame, might be a different form, even not
Mm-hmm.
human, but that all of those are connected somehow to this source of consciousness. And we're given a body, we're given our thoughts, our
Mm-hmm.
emotions, our environment, and then we say, go play. Here, you're on earth, you've been given these parents, you chose them, you designed this life, this is what you're going to do. This is your vehicle, this is your meat suit. Just wear this meat suit during this finite time and learn what you can. And it's mostly learn what you can about love. That it comes down to love. That's like
Wow.
you realize once you know that, the rest is just an easy game. But your
Man,
true
sorry.
nature is
Like, sorry to
is
cut you off there, because I I
no.
I had this like chills, because like I interviewed Hans Wilhelm a couple episodes back, and we were talking about like the universe, the purpose of this universe, and he said the same thing. It's all about learning to love and forgive. So it's like, wow, everyone's like saying that, and so it does hold some truth to that, and really want to understand. Yeah, please, but yeah, please keep going your
Yeah,
thought process.
and to realize that you aren't these thoughts that you have, that that if you can just get yourself to the point where your thoughts aren't bipolar, like your brain is left right side, and so whatever you think on one side you have another thought like, ooh, I'd like to take that person out to dinner, but if I do, they might misinterpret my intentions, or they might, and you know, like you play tennis with yourself, the right,
Hmm.
left, right, left. There's always a fight going on because your brain is bipolar. But once you can drop down, almost like there's like an exercise you can do where you imagine you're in an elevator and you're just going down, 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 and you have that same energy coming out of your heart, and your energy says, wow, that's an interesting person, I'd like to have dinner with them. Because that energy is coming out of your heart, there is no ulterior motive. There is no way to misinterpret or to say something that's going to offend that person, because your energy is pure.
Mm.
And if you do that with all your interactions, say you're going into a meeting and you're going to be scared, you think, oh, I've got so much writing on this meeting, this proposal, this whatever. Before you go into the meeting, just ride that elevator, go down to your heart and say, I'm going to go in there and I love every person in that room already.
Mm.
Now let's go in and find out why I love them.
Mhm.
Instead of, oh my God, they're going to think I'm silly. Oh, I've got a spot on my tie. Oh, my haircut is terrible this month. Whatever, all those kind of conflicting things don't exist if your
Mm.
energy is coming down and out through your heart. So when that energy is doing that, that's your consciousness, that's your true nature. It's not about your thoughts or your emotions. It's not even about reacting to other people's thoughts and emotions. If you're in a bad experience and someone says something that offends you,
Mm.
train yourself just to say, well, that's curious, because then there's no judgment,
Right.
there's no reaction, and I've just learned to become very attached to non-attachment. I just let things go, and in that way you stay conscious.
Mm.
So that's on that individual level of consciousness.
Right.
And then we need to, in order to get, as your question was, into Dr. Hawkins, is an
Yeah.
understanding of collective consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I've extracted from Native Americans, Peruvian shamans, Aborigines, Tibetan monks, and what. I mean, there is a theory that they're all really connected, and there's different, even geographical theories, like the Earth was actually much smaller. I don't know if you've seen these things where they blow up the Earth, and all of the continents actually fit together like a puzzle piece when you put them back together.
Like Pangea?
If you take out the water,
Mm-hmm.
the planet fits
Right.
together.
Right.
Then there's also theories that there's an entire tunnel system throughout the entire world. And this tunnel system has been known by these various cultures, and they shared ideas and learned ideas and branched off. And then when the continents formed, everybody created different ideologies, but with the same root. And
Mm-hmm.
that root was referred to in Jungian psychology as the connective consciousness.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So we all have certain value systems and processes of learning, but we express them in different ways. So, for example, the Chinese Zen teachings, they have stories called the parable of the 10 ox, or in some cases, it's the 10 bulls. But basically, you
Mm-hmm.
take a wild animal, you capture it, you put it in a fenced in area, and you train it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a narrative, a symbolic story about one's own consciousness, that we start with this wild animal, this heaving kind of primal id, ego, superego, conflicting soul, eventually raising in steps to this level of enlightenment. And then in the Bible, you have Jacob's ladder, about a path to heaven that goes both ways. You can
Mm-hmm.
raise and you can lower in your consciousness to heaven. So, I mean, that's the Jungian root, in that you have the same concept, but in different stories and different means of communication.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Hawkins was right time, right place. He created basically an Excel spreadsheet that is very postmodern and very popular because of its clarity.
Mm-hmm.
He used words rather than stories,
Mm-hmm.
and he used a numerical system that defines the levels of consciousness from 1 to 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
And though, even though they're numbered 1 to 1,000, it's actually logarithmic and multidimensional. So to transfer from one point, say from 5 to 6,
Mm-hmm.
is a major increase in your spiritual awareness and
Mm.
enlightenment. So to understand that there are 1,000 steps involved, you realize it's quite a journey we have to do.
Mm. And so kind of going back to the individual level of consciousness, if I was like I was 5 or I was like, 7, in like second grade, like how would you describe consciousness to me? Um,
Well, you're born with a level of consciousness, and I personally think that there's a trajectory that you plan to have in your life, and you might be born at a very low level, and that level might even be what your parents were on, so that your childhood is harmonious because your level of consciousness is in alignment with your parents. Um, you can also absorb energy in the womb from your mother and your father
mhm,
that will, if impact your concept of life, your emotional state, and your consciousness. And then when you start to understand more and you learn more, then you'll start growing. But some people could even, because of the influences of their environment, drop down. I mean, it's
mm,
not always a path up.
right.
Dr. Fritz refers to things like situations, say with Hitler, when Hitler started, he said that he read his speeches and his writings when in his youth, and he was very idealistic. And he said he was somewhere 400 on the chart which we haven't really expressed or shown the chart, but we should probably do that.
Mm-hmm.
But and then he said once he reached his power and his infiltration of other countries, and he realized sort of a megalomaniac personality, he actually dropped to 40.
Mm-hmm.
So um, so it is a quest, and it is so for some people they maintain a level their entire life. They may be born within a family and have a certain consciousness
Mm-hmm.
and nothing to change it.
Right.
And other people who are on this mission, this quest to know and be more. And you might have some A types out there and say, okay, I want to do some sessions, I want to be 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to realize that to be 1,000, you're on the level of Buddha and Jesus. And maybe your life choices then would be involved with
Yeah.
just, oh, my screen just popped up. Oh, your screen
Yeah.
just popped
Do you see it?
up.
Yeah. I just want
Yeah,
to show people that are watching this on YouTube. That's the scale. But
yeah, that
if
it's a
you were
bit,
yeah, sorry, is it a bit blurry?
no, it's just a bit different from Dr. Hawkins because he goes to 1,000. I think yours is just
Oh,
going to 700, but that's okay.
okay. Yeah.
It's the same concept of that. If you were to go to that top stage of enlightenment, um, if that is your goal, you need to realize that it would mostly mean you sit around meditating in a cave somewhere. So it's not about having interactions with other people as much. It's about
Mm-hmm.
a complete absorption of your existence into consciousness. So these are all
Right.
percentages of how connected to real life are you. And there's certain
Mm-hmm.
professions even that are much more geared towards certain levels, like 250, 300 is like very concrete into third dimension. They
Mm-hmm.
make great construction workers, people who build buildings, people who have a really great understanding of the materials. So that's a certain level of consciousness. And that's why the people who work in that field get along so well,
Mm-hmm.
because they're all very similar in their consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So there's and then you get an architect who might be more spiritual, have more not a firm understanding of cement, but rather ideas and designs. And so
Mm-hmm.
maybe an architect would be on a higher level of consciousness.
Mm. Yeah, I
So,
want, yeah, totally get that. I want to ask because on the scale, right, there is 20, which is associated with shame, and then as you go higher, let's say anger is 150, and then neutrality is 250, and then like reason is 400. Can you just explain a little bit about like what does the number represent, and then how come like how did they actually figure out, let's say, shame equates to that number?
right. Dr. Hawkins did testing, which is it's a form of testing called muscle testing. Its technical name is applied kinesiology, and I mean I do it all day in my treatments with body code, emotion code, and grace treatments. For me, and there's different ways of getting signals, but for me, I use just one finger. If the answer is affirmative, then my finger becomes very firm like that. And if it's a no, it drops. So I can design yes/no questions to to just get responses from my higher self. And when I treat people, even if it's virtual, they don't even have to be present. I'll just connect to their higher self and say, do I have permission to connect? Yes. My finger will go yes. And then I'll say, all right, so can we work on this issue that's been presented, this person would like to work on? And if I get a yes, then, it's a firm
Mm-hmm.
answer. So anyway, he applied that methodology to thousands and thousands of people around the world. He even used it on, say, the Bible. And he said that the the Old Testament, which was about fire and brimstone and a vengeful God, was way lower on the consciousness scale than the New Testament, which is much more about a benevolent God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So even with books, films, movies, he was able to muscle test and determine a certain level of consciousness that existed in in that creation without even reading it, without even opening it. It could be in a language you didn't speak, but the
Hmm.
higher self knows everything. It knows everything you've eaten for lunch for your entire life. It knows the name of every person in a massive crowd that's out there. There's nothing you can't ask your higher self that you can't, if it's willing to tell you that you can't get that answer. So um, it's a wonderful method. I actually, on if someone wanted to learn how to do grace, the very first thing you need to do is to be able to muscle test. And I have
Mm.
free videos on my video page there teaching you how to do it. And you can use it. Like I use it if I go into Whole Foods and I think, is there a supplement I need in
Right.
order to have perfect health?
Right.
And say yes. And if it says, I'll say, okay, is it on the right side, the left side? It's on the
Right.
right, top shelf, bottom shelf. And you just find it, and
Right.
it's your best friend.
And for people that do not understand or like a little bit dubious of like, okay, like your higher self knows everything, or people that are a little bit more scientific minded, how I guess like, or people just knew about this concept and curious to learn more. Can you just like explain like the higher self, because it sounds really cool that we all want to like connect and have access to this, like it seems to be infinite knowledge, right? So can
Yeah.
you just tell us a little bit about that? I'm just genuinely curious how we can tap more into that.
um, well, if you've ever known smaller children, say right when they first start learning how to talk, they'll tell you sometimes even about being in heaven. People have made books about the stories that children have presented, and and we lose that. We get trained, we get conditioned to think those are fake stories. The invisible friend and
Hmm.
all these things, because our awareness is much stronger as a child before we lose all that energy. So if you think back, if you can just remember some inklings of your own childhood, you might be able to touch into that. In terms of structure, I like to use that idea of the octopus, that there's just something that is this knowing ball of energy that is coming into our bodies and then it goes out again. But it's just here to learn, to experience, and then to leave. So
Mm.
we're just here to try to figure out everything that we're talking about today. I think that is the ulterior motive, and to have fun.
Right.
Let's not forget, it shouldn't be so hard.
Mm.
It shouldn't. It really shouldn't be so hard as we've all made it out to be.
Mm.
Once you understand, I mean, and this is the principle in grace that's so vital, is to understand that there's a myriad of holographic images out there all around you all the time. And you have a choice. You have free will.
Hmm.
And you can say, I'm sad, I'm depressed, and there's nothing, I'll never get the job that I want. And you will draw that towards you.
Mm.
If you can say, and this is the hardest thing I found, that people, they can't really say what they want in present tense.
Mm.
People come to me with addictions and depressions and suicidal, and I'll say, okay, make a statement about how you want your life to look. And they'll say, I want to be without addiction. I go, no, no, that's still got some double negatives going on
Right.
there.
Right.
Say what it is that you want in present tense. And that step for some is so hard.
Mm.
But then once you do, it's like setting your GPS coordinates on this particular hologram that's floating out there. And you
Mm.
say, that's the one now. This one. This is it. And by doing that, it draws it towards you. And
Mm.
this is very an ancient method used. The healers in Native American, they never let someone say what their disease is. They say, don't, if you say what it is, you're giving it verbal power, which is giving it vibrational power, which is drawing it
Right.
stronger. So you
Right.
never say a disease. You say, I'm in perfect health.
Right.
And
Funny,
the
right?
healer says, draw that perfect health towards you.
Right.
That's native healing.
Mm. Native
So you
healing.
think how different that is. Yeah, that's how different it is than, say, a pharmaceutical. You go to your doctor to say, this is what's wrong. I mean, that's all he listens to all day long is,
Hmm.
I have a rash, I have a this, I have a that.
Hmm.
You never discuss health.
Right. Right.
And so that's the complete opposite.
Yeah, kind of ironic with what's going on in the world right now, how we're feeding so much vibration to this one thing that's going on, which we all know what's up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah.
But kind of going back to the higher self and then going back to the consciousness scale as well. I think perhaps because this episode is more about consciousness, we'll focus more on that. Maybe later on I'll have just an episode on higher self. But just kind of going back on the scale, like, shame, and the consciousness is at 20. So does that mean if I'm feeling shameful, my consciousness at that moment is at 20? Like, so how does that label and that level of consciousness, what's the relationship there?
Okay, it's a vibration. All emotions are just vibrations. So when you say, I'm going to set my vibrations higher, what
Mm-hmm.
you're doing, you're releasing yourself from those lower vibrations that are holding you down. Do you ever like meet people and they just walk into the room and you just feel like the vibration in the room drops?
Mm-hmm.
They've added a negative energy to the vibrational level in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these are just words, and words are just symbols, but they're all symbolizing levels of frequency. So you want to raise your frequency by getting rid of the dirt, the nastiness, the trapped emotions, the traumas, the ancestral impacts, the distorted DNA that you inherited. There's just so many things that have weight and mass and hold you down.
Mm-hmm.
And so by pulling those out, you can go from a level that is like, say, shame. We all know what that feels like, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just a word. And that feels like a really low frequency. I mean, you're, if I treat people who have repeated levels of shame that I have to pull out, I know to be aware that they're very close to suicide. It's a,
Mm-hmm.
it's the lowest emotion on the scale.
Mm. Wow.
So by pulling that out, you're allowing the chakras to spin better. You're allowing the brain to lift in what it thinks about.
Mm.
You're pulling out the trapped bits that are
Mm.
that are just anchors of
Right.
despair.
Right, because emotions don't get I mean, if just because you don't think about them and you suppress them doesn't mean it's not there. It gets trapped in your body. And
Yes,
so
exactly.
very important to let release and purge that out a little bit more. Um but when you talk about vibration and frequency, like how do you are you talking about the same thing, or is there some like difference when you use the word frequency and vibration?
No, I think they're just different words that maybe different people might connect to one or the other. But it's just like a higher level, a higher state. When your frequency is high, when you're happy, you can be, I mean, we all know what that, you're uplifted. It's even in the language.
Yeah,
It's like a higher state and
right.
happiness. And um, I think when you look at that scale, you can intellectually determine where you feel the most comfortable,
Mhm.
because there can be too much. It's like eating too much candy or too much
Mhm.
ice cream. You feel like
Mhm.
this isn't me. You're not ready to be at that level. So
Mm.
I've had people say to me, at first they really, I want to be at the top. I'm saying, look, let's just think about, what do you really want to be doing? Because it's about doing. You're here, your meat suit is here to do
Mhm.
and accomplish things. So what level do you think is the most appropriate for you to achieve what your goals are?
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
might be, say you want to be a writer, you want to, like the work that you do, it might be that you need to be on the frequency of love.
Mhm.
And that's that unified energy that allows you to communicate with people in all walks of life.
Mhm.
um, Being higher might not be appropriate for you, because then you'll lose that level of resonance
Mhm.
attracts people of that are like-minded.
Mm-hmm.
So it's finding your place, and we're so judgmental, thinking, well, being on a low level isn't that good. But for some people, that's all they can handle.
Mm-hmm.
Levels of noise,
Mm-hmm.
too much noise, and you think, I have to get out of here.
Right. Um,
Um,
So I'm curious, like, why do you think it's important for, I mean, some people, not everyone, right? Let's say you say this type of work would only appeal to certain types of people, but like to some people, why is it very important to be aware of their consciousness and increase it to a higher level? Why is this meaningful?
I think it's something that should be taught in schools. I mean, that was my goal, is really to get graced into schools so that, and children can learn muscle testing within hours. Adults take much longer. I think we have too many blocks.
Mm-hmm.
But if it were part of the curriculum where people could understand what it is, and it's not a mysterious thing, and they're not responding to someone cutting them off in a car, let's say, and I have to get even with that person because they cut me off. No, just say, that was curious.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would just change all interactions. Everything that we do would have a different frequency of awareness. Now, the sad thing, and I have to mention this because it's important in Dr. Hawkins' teachings, is that 85% of the human population is at 200. It's either 200 or 250. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the bottom quarter.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of work to be done out there.
Mm. And has it always been, is it, but do you know, like, compared to humanity, like the history of humanity, are we at a relatively high vibration, like compared to, let's say, the 1800s versus now?
I think what we have now are external forces that are trying to separate us from our spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, this may get into some dodgy areas for some people, but there's fluoride that's put in the water
Mm-hmm.
that calcifies the pineal gland, and your pineal gland is your connection to your higher self.
Mm-hmm.
It is actually structured just like an eyeball facing up. It
Mm-hmm.
actually faces the crown chakra, and it gets calcified from things like genetically modified foods, EMF waves. God knows what 5G is going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So there are efforts out there to destroy the connection,
Mm-hmm.
which is why things like this, along with a diet and a concern for your health, are very, very important.
Mm. And so that's why, I personally, I haven't used fluoride based toothpaste for a while now.
One too,
um
yeah.
Yeah, so that's just something that I've been kind of experimenting with for like a year. And like, I mean, for me, I don't know. Like I would feel, because I feel my third eye quite easily. Like when I, as since a child, when I focus on my forehead, it would have like this pop in kind of like sensation. And so I think with meditation, especially, that feeling is even more present. And so yeah, that like third eye is definitely a thing, because I can feel it, right? Even my all my chakras, I can feel my chakras very easily. um
That's amazing. That's wonderful. Well, you think of then if they put fluoride on children's teeth, look
mhm,
where they are, right next to, it goes right up into the brain.
mm,
So
mhm,
all of those chemicals, they actually paint it on the teeth as well as put it in the water.
mm,
So, and the toothpaste. You know that if it actually, there's a warning on toothpaste, um, one of the big name ones beginning with a CR,
mhm.
um, that is has a warning that it's poison. Don't
Right.
let your children eat this.
Okay.
And you're letting them use it daily in their mouth, which is highly absorbent. The whole mucosa of the mouth is
Right.
incredibly absorbent. So it's all going in, going up, and trying to separate the the
Yeah,
thing.
the shots, right. Yeah.
Yeah, they're saying that that's the intention for that, is to separate you from your spirit.
Mm,
That there's an AI implant.
mhm. Yeah.
So that's another whole.
There's a whole nother rabbit hole. I mean, like with
Yeah.
these kind of things, right? Like, I think it's not hurtful to listen to like a different perspective, and
Exactly.
but then kind of do your own research and just be, I guess, how to put it, like be informed of these decisions, because a lot of people are not like they just don't look into it and they just say, hey, fuck it, let me just go do it. And I was like, nah, man, this is your health. This is something you're putting inside your body. This is as personal as it gets, right? Like other than sex and eating and like taking these things and your medicine, like what else is going in you, right? So
Well,
it's like,
I heard something very interesting that there are people saying they will not date someone who has had the vaccine because they don't know about it being transferable.
oh yeah. Today I like read a tweet saying that like when you have sex, like data gets transferred, like megabytes of data gets transferred between the person, it actually, it's true, right? Energy kind of mixes, so you got to be careful who you do it with. Yeah.
Exactly. And then if you think if they're being controlled by an AI parasite, and they found Morgellon parasites in the mask, in the test, and in the vaccine,
Mm, right,
then how do you know?
right.
And even in terms of ancient words, the word aloha in the hello and goodbye in Hawaii
Mm-hmm.
is said in a way that transfers your vibration and your moisture from your air. You say aloha to
Mm-hmm.
someone's face,
Mm-hmm.
and you're giving them your breath.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So there's been an understanding of this transfer of energy and waves and
Oh, that's cool.
DNA through communications. So
And that's good, like that you want to say aloha or you want to exchange that or
I
not.
love them. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
if you really mean it, I mean, I'm sure they have other words for more professional
Right.
goodbyes and hellos, but for someone you care about, an aloha close up
Yeah.
is very much of a you breathe on them.
Yeah, got you. Where were we? Because I feel like we went a little bit of a tangent.
Let's
Yeah,
talk to Hawkins. He's safe.
yeah,
Back to
yeah.
postmodern charts.
Right, right. Back to the chart. You're right. Yeah, I forgot what we were talking about, but it'll come back. But in the meantime, is there any, I guess, like sort of like cool research, or some like studies that came from Dr. Hawkins' work that was like, oh, this is really interesting. That will like, get people into wanting to find out more about this.
Um, there's lots of different people doing lots of different things, but I'm particularly interested in the work being done by David Asprey. He
Mm-hmm.
has a program called 40 Years of Zen. It's not 40 years, but apparently the process of using this biomagnetic feedback, certain supplements, oxygen chambers. I mean, here's just a complete kit of things that you do. I think it's either 10 days or 2 weeks, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's outrageously expensive too. But he says that it's as though you have risen on the consciousness level quite substantially. So, as though you had done 40 years of Zen, is where he gets his name.
Okay, so he has a program where you can go and for a couple of weeks and then get to this level. Is that what you're saying?
That's what he's saying. Yeah,
Okay.
through biofeedback and all sorts of. It's a mechanical process and biochemical. So it's a very different than what I do, which is connecting to your higher self
Mm-hmm.
and creating the statement about where you want to be. And um, like, say, we'll do a test and say, what is your base level? Where are you on the chart? And through muscle testing, we get a number. Let's say I don't know, I'm throwing out a number 300. And we can look on the chart, we read about it. I'll tell you what that level means in terms of your interactions with your God, with your level of spiritualness, with your interactions with others. The chart isn't just one unified column. It'll be, I'm sure you'll see it, but it has 5 different categories, and we define what that is, and then we ask your higher self
Mm-hmm.
in a session, what can we do? How many numerical steps can we raise this person?
Mm-hmm.
And so far, three has been the highest, 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
But I've done with different people, you know, once a week or something
Yeah,
like
you've
that
done
to
it
get
on
that.
me as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you've had it. You've experienced
Yeah.
a change. So yeah, and then once we get permission from the higher self to do what it is, we figure out what's the block, what is the main reason why you're not going higher, and we just find that block. I don't know if you want to talk about your experience, but you, I think yours
Yeah.
was anyway. What was
Put it on the
yours?
street. Yeah, put it on the street. What is it? What was that? Like I think I don't know, a little bit
Past
higher
life,
than 250, like
ancestor.
300 something. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, that's
But it
okay.
doesn't
Nobody.
matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter where I am. But
Yeah.
I think the experience was pretty interesting. Like I went into the session with no expectation really, just to try it out. I'm kind of open-minded with these sort of things, so it's like I'm like, okay, I think that's the best thing. And I feel like, for some people, if they do not believe in like an angel or whatever, like, hey, try praying, try asking for a sign. Like you'll be surprised what you find sometimes if you just ask from a wholehearted perspective. Trying praying with no doubts involved, because it's only when you do pray and when you do ask for these guidance, then it will come to you, because they can't, like, the universe or God won't interfere with your free will. But anyways, that's a tangent. But I kind of went into that with the same mindset that I learned from approaching these more spiritual kind of modalities. And um I just had these kind of like frustration and anger towards, my helper, my maid, at my home. And then it turns out to be like kind of like an ancestral trauma or something that my great grandfather apparently didn't release or something, and it got passed down to me. And so, Diane helped me kind of like ask for healing and kind of help this thing be dissolved in a way. And moving forward for a couple of weeks, initially the first day, it really miraculously didn't even come up right before. Like it will come up and I have to use my willpower to shift it. But then after that session, I would say it never even came to my consciousness. And then a few days later, it kind of came back, but not in the same, I would say, strength or signal. And right now I'm just kind of consciously working on it a little bit more. So I think it was at like a 7, and then it went to like a 0. Now it's at like 4 or 3. I would say it's still there, but it's slowly kind of
It's,
working its
it's
way out.
fading.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think how we explain that is that the biggest block was this ancestral distortion of a DNA. Something happened to your grandfather that was so severe in his lifetime that his DNA changed, and then he conceived your father. Your
Mm-hmm.
father inherited that, and then he passed that on to you. So we pulled that out, but then we had to address. You've had a lifetime of
Mm-hmm.
responding in that way, so you've created a habitual way of communication, a certain, as we say, like a frequency of
Mm-hmm.
this is how I was born, this is what I know, and this is what I do. So we took away the reason that you had it, but then
Mm-hmm.
we had to deal with the habitual level of what you have contributed to this particular way of interacting. And then
Mm-hmm.
that's what had to be pulled out secondary to that. So
Mm. Yeah.
yeah,
And
been
with this like ancestral DNA thing, it's like pretty interesting, because I was like looking at a data somewhere regarding ayahuasca and how that altered people's DNA after like taking ayahuasca. And then,
really.
yeah, and then so I was thinking, holy moly, like before I'm having kids, I'm making sure I'm taking me and my wife and like making sure our DNA is straight as possible before we have any kids, man. Like that was the thought that came into me. So that was really cool. It actually changes the genetics of yourself, yeah, after doing ayahuasca.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't personally see spirits or ghosts. I have had some experiences, but I don't like when I'm doing sessions.
Mm-hmm.
But Dr. Nelson, who developed the body code, which is another healing modality that I do, is on stage often doing demonstrations. And
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to an ancestral release.
Mm-hmm.
The people in the audience who are psychic, who do see this, say the stage fills up with these 20 generations or whatever it is,
Wow.
who are also being released from this. So we always say we want to take it out of this person and the entire lineage that's been affected. And
Mm.
so they say they come on stage and express their gratitude. So it'd be wonderful if you could see that, but I just always include that even though I have no
Right.
knowledge of
Yeah. Yeah, moving back early on to like when we were deep into the rabbit hole and we lost our train of thought. I remember, so we were
oh,
talking about like why we should increase our consciousness, and you were saying like, how it improves the quality of our lives, and talking about my personal experience that does happen. And then you were talking about how just the world in general is at the like lower, I guess, like lower consciousness because of certain systematic oppression. But let's talk a little bit about, I guess, like how we can start developing our consciousness, knowing that those things are there, but we still want to feel that empowerment because ultimately we still can do something. So what are the different things that we can do to start increasing our consciousness?
well, have a treatment. That's number one.
Yeah.
And then as I work with people, I can see there are ways, especially if I combine it with the body code of going into, there are funny things you can be allergic to that you don't know about. There can be misalignments in your spine, which is
Mhm.
really important. Even though you say, "Oh, I've never had a spine issue in my life," there can be a misalignment, or maybe you hurt your back at one point. And what happens is the body will store trapped emotions wherever you are the weakest at that point in time. So, say, for example, you lose your job, you're going home, you trip, you sprain your ankle, and you're sitting there with your box and all your things all over the place, and you're thinking, oh, this is awful. You get home and your ankle hurts, and then you get
Mhm.
another job. And you think the next day you go out and it's 3 times the money in a great city where you have friends and everything's wonderful, but you still have this ankle problem.
Mm.
That's because those emotions of depression and grief and upset and anger, whatever it was that was stimulated by being fired, got trapped in your ankle. And so
Mhm.
chronic illness happens this way. You
Mhm.
just push it there, and instead of, and this is where I'm going back to teaching and going to schools and saying, look, teach children. You have a bad emotion. It's not who you are. It's just a trigger to tell you, listen, learn the lesson, let that emotion go. But if you don't, then you have to come to someone like me who can then, in one treatment, I can pull out those emotions that are creating that ankle issue, and then people in minutes are cured. I've
Mm.
had a yoga teacher who had a hip pain for
Mhm.
10 years. She had to quit teaching yoga because of the severity of the pain. And
Mhm.
in 10 minutes, we pulled out her trapped emotions from a divorce,
Mm.
and she
Mm.
went back to teaching yoga again, and she's just said it's miraculous. Well, it's not. It's just a mechanical process almost what I do, because and it's not me. I have to make that very, very clear. I'm just like a telephone. I just work here.
Mhm. Right.
Connect your higher self to
Right.
you and saying, look, I don't want to carry this around anymore. It's
Right.
time for me to let it go, learn
Right.
the lesson, and move on.
And for the listeners out there, like I've tried another like in addition to Grace, right? So I did twice with Diane. The first time was about increasing our consciousness, my consciousness. Second time was a little bit of body code, emotional body code, and then a little bit of Grace as well. And so I've tried to pinpoint my ankle, and I would have to say I didn't have the same experience as that lady where I miraculously like after one session, and I don't expect that to be because it's a really long kind of
Oh,
uh,
you've had it. Well,
yeah, have a very long time. But I would say like after reflecting, I would say it I was doing some stretches where I wasn't doing before the session. So I think it helped in some way, but I would say I'm curious to trying even a couple sessions more and see how
good.
that works. And I can give like a candid little review. But there's a lot of different parts of my body and I want to like work on. So I probably would, like need a few more sessions there. But yeah, I think it's more about a combination of the mental and physical and spiritual. So probably it's still very wise to keep doing the physiotherapy or exercises, but also if that hasn't been working, maybe it's time to try a little bit of this modality and see if it helps. So it's not, I don't see it as like a one, like it's a solution, but it's part of the solution.
Mhm.
That's my
For some,
perspective. Yeah.
yeah, some people it is a solution. For some people, it it can go deeper and deeper and deeper. As you say, you can have an. I've treated people that have
Hmm.
um, lost their ice cream cone at 3 years old. It fell over, and it was so traumatic.
Right.
Or a little girl's candy necklace, with a little rubber band, and they eat the candy.
Hmm.
It broke, and the candy spilled all over the floor, and she was in
Hmm.
class, and it embarrassed her to death. Okay,
Hmm.
that got stored and trapped in her
Hmm.
body, her entire.
Hmm.
She's a grown woman, and she goes, "I know what happened. I broke my necklace when I was at school." I mean, it's amazing what gets trapped, and
Mm,
even in the womb. There are many times I treat people whose parents went through terrible stress,
mm,
being in war, being in a breakup of the relationship,
mm,
and those emotions get absorbed. So,
right.
I mean, it's so deep.
I think one central thing that we are able to come to a little bit of conclusion is if for us to raise our consciousness, one very easy way, or I mean, one of the principle is to release trapped emotions. And there's a lot of different modalities that could help you do that. But would you say that's one of the, I guess, I guess for input, that would be the most the highest output of where people could look into, like releasing
Yeah,
emotions.
sure. I mean, you can meditate, and we all know that how that helps, and you have to
Hmm.
keep doing. There's affirmations. We all know that helps, but you have to just, I think they say you have to say it 10,000 times in order
Hmm.
for there to be any change. So the idea of maybe getting rid of a block that's keeping you from, it's like there are professional log jam people who fly in helicopters, and they say, okay, take out that log,
Hmm.
and when you do, the whole river flows with all of the logs again because they've
Mm.
moved the jam. So
Hmm.
it's depends on the person. It's like, I mean, it's just something so small sometimes, and
Hmm.
other times it's layer upon layer upon layer that you create a block, and then you just add to it
Hmm.
rather than to deal with what's causing it. and
Mm.
and we just aren't trained to do that anymore.
Mm.
So
Wow.
that's really one of my soapbox things, is to get children and get them muscle testing, get them thinking. You can even buy GRACED as a software for your family, and people can treat each other. There's a one woman who's an acupuncture, and she uses it in her practice, and she says, I've done it so many times now, it's totally memorized. I can do it on the bus. Just
Mm. Mm.
so yeah, it's the idea of having these tools for yourself, and not
Hmm.
always having to go to an external healer.
Got
And
you.
that's the empowerment of it.
Mm. And I want to ask, like, you like serving so many different clients before, um, and just being so experienced yourself. Like, what do you think? Well, I mean, what do you see are the most common blockages for people, regarding their consciousness?
um, Anxiety, stress, I would say.
Hmm.
And
Which comes
there
from?
um, I think expectations that aren't real materialized,
Mm.
having expectations, which gets back into that non-attachment thing. If if you're trying to get to an appointment and there's a traffic jam,
Hmm.
you have to think to yourself, not, oh my God, this is awful, what can I do? I'll risk going in the emergency. No, you just say, okay, there must be a reason why I'm being held back. Maybe it's to avoid me being in an accident.
Hmm.
There's a Chinese saying that everything is a gift. Even a cold is a gift because it makes you stop and recoup and pull
Hmm.
yourself together. So if you think of everything as a gift, and just say to yourself, well, that's curious. Why am I, why am, there's never been a traffic jam on this road before. Why am I experiencing this now when I need to get someplace at a certain time?
Mm-hmm.
You know, instead of getting angry or stressed, you can't change it.
Mm.
So with things you can't change, it's about controlling that frequency thing again and not letting it just blow up until, road rage or um, doing reckless things to get there on time.
Mm. Right.
So
So
it's
you see
yeah,
like stress, anxiety, and like the attachment to like certain outcomes are like the most common blockages for people.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
yeah, anything you want to add before I kind of move on to the next question?
No, okay. You got that covered.
Cool. Yeah, because you alluded to the, I guess, the collective consciousness right now. You said it's around 250. So it's not that high. I guess like because we're all about like that collective ascension and moving like humanity on like this higher plane, right? Higher like conscious scale. Like how can we do it? Yeah, I mean, it's I guess like the art, because every individual needs to increase because we every individual is a sum of the collective, right?
Right.
So how, but on a collective scale, is there anything that we could do?
Yeah. I mean, what is it? You're only as strong as your weakest link. So if we're trying to get the entire collective consciousness going, we got a lot of work to do,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is why I was given this download of Graced, because I was told you got a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
I have heard of, and um, I I have no validity, but I have heard it from different people. But I'm throwing out this concept that might be on the horizon in the next few months. It's called med beds,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been asked to be involved with working on the consciousness training that people need in order to get onto a med bed. And there are three kinds of med beds. One of them deals with the physical body, repairing, restoring, rejuvenating. The second one deals with the mind. It cures things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ADDH, PTSD, autism. I mean, it goes on. Anything to do with the imbalances of the mind, even damage.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one, and this is wild, is a regeneration of lost limbs or body parts. And so they're using them now on veterans who've had part of their body blown away. But it's where you actually, when you get into these, they're like a tube that's made out of clear plexiglass,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but it connects to the consciousness of your body, and it reads the imprint that was your original blueprint of
Mm-hmm.
life.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say, for example, if someone has, say, an arm missing, if you slam a door where that arm should have been, they will feel pain.
Mm-hmm.
It's as though the resonating energy is still there for the entire arm. So this computerized system somehow identifies what that ideal state should be. Say when you're 20 years old, I think is where it projects you to, and
Mm-hmm.
what the cells should look like, and it regenerates those cells. But it interacts with your consciousness. And I'm not sure what I've agreed to or said I would, somehow get involved with, but it's about training the consciousness to be on a certain level that it can communicate with this AI machine.
Mm. Okay.
So, that's
That's
kind of
interesting.
wild, I know,
And
but
and who created this med bed? Because it sounds like fascinating, but it seems like whoever created this would probably not live a long time. Given how much incentive it's being will undermine. So who's the go-to person to ask for these information?
there are people interacting with them now. There's someone called Simon Parks in the UK, and he organizes a group called Connected Consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
There's Charlie Ward, who lives in Spain. He's English but lives in Spain, and he's been involved with the new financial reset system. and has organized, I think it's 270 countries so far who have joined the new Nasara money system. And as a benefit of joining, they will have access to these machines. Who is the actual originator of the machines? It might be hard for people to comprehend, but what I'm told, it's off planet.
Okay. And okay. So, well, keep me up to date on this this whole thing. I think because I've tried Googling it, because you told me about this like last time when we had like the session, but I couldn't really find like a website for it where like so it's kind of I guess in that area at the moment. But yeah, I've seen some different websites uh talking about a little bit about it. Yeah, even Blissful Visions actually. Dennis Shipman talks about it. Dennis was a past guest on the show, so
Oh,
yeah,
fantastic.
he actually has article on it written in 2018 August 6th. So not sure what development has happened since then, but yeah.
Yeah, fingers crossed. It should, I mean, dates are hard to pinpoint, but I've heard this summer, so I don't know.
Okay.
I don't want to
Cool.
say if it doesn't happen this summer, that's not going to happen. I'm just saying that they're trying to get the money system established so that people can't take advantage, as you say. It's anyway. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it on that.
Okay. So I guess what I got from that, like how to increase the collective consciousness in the sense it's like trying to think about certain inventions or services, softwares, or products that could potentially reach a lot of people at the same time. And even if we can increase their level of consciousness up by one when they interact with these products, right? Then that'll be fantastic. If it's like a guided meditation, or if it's like a retreat ceremony, or let's say it's a certain type of, I don't know, like healing crystal statue that you put in your house that somehow
Mhm.
provides really good energy, something like that might that kind of like spark me into thinking that kind of terms.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And I think as we mentioned before about the stress and the anxiety, I
Hmm.
think if we do have a monetary system where people are not struggling to have to pay for energy, that there's
Hmm.
free energy,
Hmm.
where you're not taxed to death,
Hmm.
where people own their home and have a debt-free existence.
Hmm.
Those sort of issues are addressed, and we're living on a planet that's as beautiful as it is, and we're more aware of that beauty
Hmm.
rather than being subjugated like a feudal system.
Mm.
And you remove that, there can be a natural buoyancy that's going to help us get beyond, even for those people so far that have lived, um, hand to mouth.
Oh.
And that is keeping things down. Not everyone. Some
Mhm.
people can live hand to mouth and be perfectly happy,
Mhm.
but for people caught in the rat race and the trap and the expectations and the family pressures and too
Mhm.
many mouths to feed and
Right.
illness, and you take away illness, what does that do for the consciousness?
Right. No, I can't agree more on that because of the what is it called? There's that pyramid, the self-actualized pyramid.
Yeah.
uh,
Yes,
the
yeah.
Maslow hierarchy needs, right? So if we're able to create a sort of system where people don't have to worry about water, energy, food,
Exactly.
these basic needs, how much of our consciousness would be freed to explore different types of stuff, our
Yeah.
own creativity, or go within, right? And so yeah, I totally can't agree more. It's like that I was meditating like 2 days ago. I thought about like a system where it's if we're able to collect some rainwater and then turn that rainwater into a tank, and then like charge that rainwater with like some nice crystals, and then use that rainwater to like you know um bathe or like drink. It's like it's way better than like that fluoride based water, right?
Oh,
And
I know. What
right.
amazing.
and then
Wonderful.
and then I think there's also, I was talking to a buddy of mine today, and he was talking about there's this scientist called Nassim. I forgot his last name, but I'll try to link it down in the description. And he was
He's
talking
so
about how,
good.
you
Yeah,
know
I know
him?
who you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And apparently he's doing trying to do some research work on crystal and energy. And then like I've talked to some people, they're saying that, 0 point energy already exists, but it's like being suppressed as a technology, or um and they're trying to just do some like energy stuff. And I feel like if that came online, like, oh, this world would be in totally different, like,
Imagine no petrol dynasties, no pharmaceutical dynasties, no ill people, no taxes, no debt. I mean, imagine how different the planet. I mean, this is what's planned. This is all the stuff that's planned. And you mentioned Tesla. I don't know if you know that Tesla invented all these like free
right.
energy machines and
Yeah.
things, and his patents
Right.
were he lost his support by oh, he's a famous banker. He
Like
was being,
JP Morgan Chase, something
yes,
like that. Yeah.
yes, very good,
JP
JP
Morgan.
Morgan. And he said, I can in this little box there's enough energy that can take care of an entire house or a
Mhm.
car or. And JP Morgan says, wait a minute, you mean you're not going to need telephone poles? You're not going to need copper wiring? You're not going to have charges? He goes, no, it'll be free. You just buy the box and it's free.
Mhm.
He cut off his funding for him because all of his wealth was based on those various modalities. So he just said, no, 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 you're not going to do this. So the person who picked up his work, it's funny enough, was Donald Trump's uncle.
Mm.
Very few people
Okay.
know this. Actually, there were patents that were the theory is that Tesla was murdered and his entire collection of patents and writings and research were just disappeared.
Right, right. Like,
So
I
no one
think the
really
CIA or something raided the place, and then it was gone, right? Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, somebody has all those things, and the
Right.
hope is everyone's hope is that the right time, right place is that somehow that's in the Trump family and it's being released.
Okay.
Those patents have actually been registered, so they exist. It's just who has access to them. And I think they're opening up access to them that people can set up manufacturing firms all over the world. I mean, can you imagine how different Africa would be if you had free energy, that
Right.
people could have
Anywhere in the
computers?
world. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anywhere. Yeah.
you go from this primitive existence to suddenly refrigeration, air conditioning, irrigation. I mean, it just changes the dynamics.
Yeah. So I think that's giving a lot of inspiration. Oh, by the way, it's like I think they said JP Morgan or said something like, if you can't put a measure on it, like, I don't want it. Meter on it. If you can't put a meter on it, I don't want
Put
it.
a meter in. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but see, like, that's the interesting fact, that if we can think about these new kind of like alternative systems, and sometimes it seems so crazy if we think about these things, but like if you step back on a macro picture, it's like, this makes sense, like this is how I want the world to be like. And so yeah,
Right.
sometimes we
I
gotta like tap in that creativity without allowing that voice and doubt kind of like shut out our creativity, and then we'll focus on like how to execute that idea. Yeah.
I mean, just in my lifetime, I remember seeing the first person with a mobile phone. He was walking down Soho in London in the snow,
Hmm.
talking to someone at full volume. I mean, he had to shout because it was such a poor system, but he's going,
Hmm.
"It's snowing, and I'm walking and talking on my phone in the snow."
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
went, "Oh my God, that's a mobile phone." Let me tell you,
Yeah.
it was this big.
Right. Right.
It was like holding it like this.
Right. Right.
So mobile is a dubious word, actually,
Right.
but and you look at where that's gone to, what we have now.
Yeah. In this conversation via
It's just,
Zoom. Right?
yeah, the fact we're talking. I mean,
Yeah. Right. Right. And so I guess, like, yeah, just keep tapping into like that higher self, and hopefully like I also want to do an episode later on the Akashic records, because apparently, like, if you know how to tap into that, like you can tap into a lot of like knowledge basically, right? So it's like, yeah.
yeah, let me know if you know anyone really good at that, because I've searched and searched, and everyone backs off for some reason. Even people who said they're trained in it. I don't know if I don't know. Yeah, if you find anyone, let me
Okay.
know.
Back up as in like they don't want to disclose too much or
They don't want to be known for doing it, so I don't know if there's repercussions. I know I mean, it's really hard in the alternative world. There's a lot of attacks, there's a lot of
right,
things happening. So
right.
that's that's been the modus operandi for all of us. I mean, there's even a documentary about the 60 alternative doctors who were killed under mysterious circumstances in the States.
Mm,
Just so
wow.
it's so you don't know. It's There's still a battle, but I think we're winning.
Okay. Yeah, I
Definitely.
mean, Dr. Sabi is probably one of them. Um, he's he's the one that kind of like introduced me to these, I guess, made me understand the power of plant medicines and herbs and like be let your thigh food be your thigh medicine, and how just nature has all of the medicines that you need. You don't need these pill forms. And
Exactly.
the natural is the best choice in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something called it's called MMS, and I think it stands for Miracle Mineral Solution,
Mm,
which was there's a wonderful documentary called The Humble documentary by Sasha Stone. That's
mm,
Sacha. Um, and they used it in Africa you get a glass of water, you mix these two little drops of things, put it in water, and they did scientific studies. They cured malaria in 24 hours.
wow.
And he says it will cure any virus.
Hey, we should be taking that right now.
Exactly. You try to get a hold of it. You have to order. There's a place in Spain where I know you can buy it. There's a wonderful man there who actually donated so many bottles of it to a friend who had a school in Africa where they suffered from Ebola. So,
Mm, mm,
um, he says it works for I mean, from anything to acne to fungus to candida. And
mm.
it's just drops. It's
Wow.
amazing.
Wow.
So it used to
Yeah.
be sold. We used to sell it on Body Code, but they were attacked by the FDA, and we had to stop.
Okay. Yeah.
So
So it's like how we started the conversation, like I think what I also got out from this, which was not intended, it's like there's so many things out there where we don't know. It's like the same thing with the medicine with the spider bite, right? If you told someone, like, yeah, whatever, that's probably not true, but because you experience it firsthand, like, yeah, these kind of things are legit, that is hidden, that the masses don't know about, and we gotta like do a little bit of research to shed light on these kind of things, and also just you know it's also knowledge is power, so the more we know, the better the quality of lives that we can have as well.
which is why it's wonderful what you do, and you're so good at it. I just know you're the shooting star that's going to help
Yeah,
share all this
hopefully no one kills me though. I'm protected, man.
information.
Yeah,
Well,
let's
you
hope
just
for
ask
that.
for protection. Just
Yeah,
don't get an ego and ask for protection, and your
yeah.
angels will be protected.
Hey, protect me. I walk in the light of love right here.
Exactly. Yeah, I know Navy SEALs who just send love to their enemies and disintegrate it. It's
Mm.
just, I mean, it's powerful.
Nice, nice. And so, can you paint a little bit of a picture for us? Like, you talked a little bit about like focusing on what we want and not focusing on what we don't want, and pulling that, parallel reality into this reality. So, can you just, if we have to, I guess, envision a world that is on a higher consciousness level, let's say from 250 to, let's say, we go to a sexy 320 or 420. I don't know. Yeah, maybe 420. How would the world look like?
Um, well, as I said to you before about the third dimensional construct, people who are really good with their hands, people who build things, I think we would live in a world where things were aesthetically more pleasing.
Hmm.
You wouldn't have graffiti, broken windows. Those are the energies of the lower frequencies.
Hmm.
And if everyone had an awareness of their consciousness, as you're saying, the 300, the third dimension reality, then there would be more awareness of how that needs to be designed in a more aesthetically pleasing way. We'd
Right.
have potters, we'd have more woodworkers, carpenters. It wouldn't be let's go buy it at Walmart and it's plastic and we throw it away in 6 months. You know, there's this sense of craftsmanship that's sorely missing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not about possession. It's not about having more and more and more, which I think is a it's an offshoot of the lower frequencies. Is that you're trying to fill a void, so you shop and you shop till you drop, and you
Mm-hmm.
have and you get, and it's all cheap and it doesn't last, and it has a fashion, and then it passes, and there's that waste factor that is also a low frequency that poisons the oceans,
Mm-hmm.
that results in sweat labor, because you have people who are working for nothing to make clothes for these shops like
Mm-hmm.
Walmart, and um, just
Yeah.
wastefulness.
Right.
And you think if people had a higher level of consciousness, that whole strata would drop out of society.
Mm. Mm. Man, when we think about like when we reach like five hundred level, does that mean we're in the 5D? Is that correlated?
I
In
don't think it does. I
okay.
think 1200 is love, and I
Yeah.
just think that's a level of unification. So I don't,
Unification.
yeah, yeah, there's
Okay. Okay.
like a unified energy of your heart in all aspects of your interactions.
Mm. Because like I feel like if we want to reach to that like 500 level as a society, like it would probably take more than just an internal adjustment and uh like our wellness to be there. I think there's also needs to be certain systematic and physical changes in order for these things to actually be on a 500 level, right? If we still have the same broken systems, the corrupt governments, like it's harder to reach to that 500 level. I think it has to go in tandem, the physical and the mental or the spiritual. I
Yeah,
don't know. That's
yeah,
my perspective.
yeah. I think you'd probably get too dizzy if you just move too fast. Like
Yeah.
anything, you'd crash. But imagine, I mean, just imagine the transition of like someone going on holiday.
Hmm.
Uh, they're working at this horrible job, and they're in a factory, and they get 2 weeks of the year to enjoy life.
Hmm.
And so imagine the difference of their last day of work and the first day of holiday. It can happen. There can be a
Hmm.
massive transition,
Hmm.
the sustaining of it,
Hmm.
and to not go back to your old habits and not go back to your old attitudes and throw those away.
Hmm.
This dog eat dog mentality, and everything's competition, when there's plenty on the planet. There's
Hmm.
plenty of space,
Hmm.
plenty of ways of growing food, healthy food.
Hmm.
We've just been lied to.
Yeah. I heard about like in terms of the collective consciousness, like the earth also has its own consciousness and its own
Absolutely.
vibration, and
Oh yeah.
how it's Mother Gaia is actually like going through its her own purging phase, and that's why there's so many like diseases or natural disasters. She's trying to like it talks about like the split, and then some people would make it to that higher level of Gaia energy. Like I don't really know too much about that, but like do you have any additional information that you can share on
Yeah,
that
I don't
topic?
blame her. I mean, I think she should shake us off like fleas from a dog.
Mhm.
What we've done to the planet.
Yeah.
I don't blame her for having volcanoes and earthquakes and all the rest of it. But
Mhm.
yeah, I have heard, and I've actually, some people have actually posted, I don't know if it's true or not, but with Photoshop, but have actually posted images where they see at times when the light is right and the planets are in the right position, you can see a parallel Earth. They can see two sunsets, two sunrises in some
Okay.
pictures. And I'm
Okay.
thinking, wow, this is making it real. And I know a lot of people who like work with me and my colleagues and what have you around the world, Canada, California, Ibiza, where they have dizzy spells. We all having dizzy spells, and we can't explain it. It's not we haven't eaten, it's not we're dehydrated, it's not, it's just weird. And when we muscle test and say why, they said it's just the process of ascension.
Mm.
You're you're molecularly changing, and this is what it feels like. So we just accept it. That's what we're told. Just accept it, and you'll
Okay.
feel it.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess we've talked a lot about different subjects today regarding consciousness. I hope the listeners have a little bit of better idea of what consciousness is, and maybe like looking into the chart and feeling like where you're at. And if you want a more accurate, I guess, assessment, you can always find Diane and go into one of her treatments and her sessions. And we also have a promo that you are offering for people that are listening to this, right? Can you can you just talk a little bit about the promo? What's going to happen? What should people expect? That sort of thing.
Yeah, it's just it's a little session for you to get an idea of how it works, and it's just go on the website and you can book it. It's on the payment and booking page, and book a calendar, set your time zone, and you get to experience a session. And I'll introduce how it works. The website's very good at explaining different things about it. There's a page called Video Enlightenment,
Mm-hmm.
and you can look at the different ways that grace has been applied, not only to the Hawkins chart, but also if you have athletes, performers, musicians, writers, there's a way of applying it to flow, which is, removing blocks and having a stronger connection to your consciousness, to whatever is your given talent, and how to make that stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also there's a video there on muscle testing, so you can
Mm-hmm.
learn how to do that. All those are free to anyone who wants to learn.
Awesome, awesome. And since we talked a lot about different insights, like in addition to checking your website out, what's that, I guess, one key action step that you would recommend for people to start, I guess, increasing their consciousness or understanding what it is?
I think probably the easiest thing to do would be to, as we've discussed, the food, the fluoride, get these things out of your life. Check
Mm,
your toothpaste, make sure you have filtered water,
mm-hmm,
uh, and you try to avoid GM foods when you can. Eat
mm-hmm,
organic. Um,
mm-hmm,
those are the best things to help raise your consciousness,
mm,
and that will strip the calcification from your pineal gland, which is
mm,
happening
mm.
to
I
many
think
people.
I can't agree more. I think, try perhaps doing like a little change your toothpaste for like a week. I mean, for like a month or two and see how you feel. But like, for me personally, I don't like, I would feel like my third eye, it's a little bit more pungent. But I strong. I think pungent is for smell. But anyways, but I'm always quite sensitive in that area anyways, right? But for me, I started with No Meat Monday, and that has changed my life a lot because used to feel really drowsy after eating meat for one day. And I don't eat it because of energy reasons as well as for ethical reasons. But now I've even switched it. I'm doing a step up where I'm doing no meat at home ever. So I'm a fully vegetarian at home now. I still do eat meat outside, but it's only it's more of like a lifestyle choice where I eat only vegetarian at home, and that has made a huge difference. And then now on Monday, instead of no meat, I'm doing only a juice fast. And so I'm taking it like another step. And I
But
feel like for
yeah,
me, yeah, the whole energy has just been different. Yeah.
it is. I really do believe that. And I, I know I get conflicting reports from people. They're saying, look at your teeth. Your teeth are carnivorous. You have these teeth, they're meant to tear into flesh. And I'm thinking that's the body. That's the vehicle. That's not my consciousness. That's not my mind. My
Mm,
mind enjoys the vegetarian diet, because there's a calmness about that I get. Whereas when I'm eating, especially if you eat some horrible animals, that gave its life in a factory farm,
Mm-hmm.
that's an energy. Do you really want that?
Mm-hmm.
You know about these transplants when they talk about people say get a heart from someone and then suddenly they start drinking beer and wanting to ride motorcycles at the age of 80, and
Mm-hmm.
they find out the person who contributed the heart died in a motorcycle accident who was a beer drinker
Mm-hmm.
because there's cell memory.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take those cells and become part of you, then you're going to adopt those characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if you're taking food, that becomes part of you. So why wouldn't you take on those characteristics? And maybe part of this lower frequency life is about consuming animals that have had a difficult life.
Right.
So that becomes part of you. So that's
Right.
another thing to consider about vegetarian.
Right. So are you like a vegetarian yourself?
I'm the same as you. I don't like to make solid, fast rules about anything.
Right.
And I try to go with the flow. If I'm at someone's house and that's what they're serving, I don't make a big stink about it.
Right.
If I'm on my own and I'm choosing what to eat, I'd say 98% vegetarian.
Right. Yeah. And I also saw like a scale where they had like different food and its frequency, and then like meat was like probably like the lowest on its vibrational scale, and then like nuts or something are very high, and like
Mm.
vegetables, fruits. So it's like, yeah, that directly affects your consciousness for sure and your frequency, just because it's low, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What's great is just to have an herb garden in your kitchen and you make a
Mm.
salad, just doesn't
Oh,
matter what it is. You don't even care what the labels are. Just throw, oh, got mint, oh, got a basil,
okay, that's
it's
that's really chill. Yeah.
lovely because it has those natural fibers and those natural oils that,
Mm,
they're so fresh.
mm, mm. Beautiful. Has been a really wonderful conversation. What time are we on? We're already at 1:38. It's around 1:30 mark. So it's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for being on. And thank you to Kylie as well for, I guess, introducing us together. And
Yeah,
yeah, it's been a wonderful little conversation. Like, how do you feel about it?
very good. Yeah, well, you're wonderful. You are, as I say, destined for great things. So I'm really feel honored to have this conversation with you.
All right, beautiful. So check out Diane's website. We'll link it in the description below. And if you resonate with this conversation, please give it a like. So yeah, thanks for watching.
Okay.
Peace.
Have
All